Good morning and welcome to Unabashedly Resolute Radio. This is Wes Mullins with Daily Musings as my drive into town to my day job because this is my real job. I'm starting the morning out with a nice drink from Young Living Essential Oils. It's called Amino Wise. It is a restorative product. If you're interested in this, go to magicessential.com. Click on the link and go search all the products. Text us or DM us or email us if you want more information about how to create a new trajectory for your life and health. It's fantastic. My wife and my kids and I have been doing Young Living for about 5 years now, and I can tell you, it has been life-changing. magicessential.com. All right, I am joined today by two very special guests. You will know them as the Abyssinian Gemini. I'm kidding. You won't know them by that. But they are the incomparable Eliana and the amazing Alexander. Welcome to the program, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're going to have to, in the back, you're going to have to speak up a little bit.
I'm so excited to be here.
All right, so Eliana, tell us who you are and where you're from.
I'm from Kentucky, but I was born in Ethiopia. I just turned 11, and I like doing ballet. All
right. Same question to you, Alex.
Same place. Everything's the same because we're twins. And my favorite hobbies are doing sword fighting and shooting Nerf guns and playing Legos.
Doing other stuff.
And reading.
Which that other stuff, yes, includes reading. The man has a voracious appetite for a book. He is very C.S. Lewis, or Lewisian as we call it, with reading, where C.S. Lewis says, you can never get a cup of tea large enough or a book big enough to suit me. That was a paraphrase. And yes, Eliana does ballet, and she is incredible. Brings me to tears every time. Not just because I'm her papa, I'm her daddy, but because she has an absolute gift to interpret music through movement of the physiological body.
Thank you.
Yes. So, what do you guys want to talk about? What is on your mind this morning? This is what we do in the Daily Musings. What have you been thinking about? What are some thoughts that you guys have been wrestling with or been having at 11?
Well, really, one of the problems for me is that I don't know when to listen to God talk to me.
Okay. She doesn't know when to listen to God speaking. So God speaks to you.
Well, I don't even know because I'm just talking to him and then I make up my own answers. And I don't realize I do that all the time, but I recognize that I do that.
So are these answers that you want to be true or answers you don't want to be? Are you sabotaging yourself? Are you trying to set yourself up for victory? What are you doing?
I'm setting myself up for victory because I'm answering and I'm giving myself the answer that I want.
Ah, yes, that's the classic Christian. God told me that I'm going to marry you. That's a classic line. If anyone knows any young Christians who are in college or in high school and they're in Christian organizations, that is the line that many a man will give to a woman. God told me I'm going to marry you. To which, if God has not spoken that to the woman should reply, yeah, he's been silent on my end. He's not said anything to me. So, I'm not sure if that's you listening to God or you wanting that to be true. So that is a great struggle even for any person in the world to struggle with, because we have impressions that come into our mind, thoughts that come into our mind, and we don't know if these thoughts are from our unconscious, if they're thoughts that were planted by somebody else, by an insinuation, or by a news clip or something like that. There's so much that we don't know about our mind in the unconscious. We talk about that here a lot, in the unconscious mind. that what we become aware of or what pops into our brain, sometimes we don't know. Is like, is this transcendently God speaking, or is this an unconscious thing popping into my head because I've been searching for this answer and it just happened to be preloaded in my unconscious mind? What? So you think you're trying to tell yourself the answer, correct?
Yes.
All right. So what is it? What is the downside to that?
The downside is sometimes, since I'm human, I'll give myself the answer that I want, and sometimes the answer that I want is not always the answer that I need.
Point in fact. Very, very astute.
Thank you.
We'll touch more on that in a minute. Alexander, how is it, my man?
It's going fine. I've been thinking about the same thing Eliana was thinking about, and how do you wrestle through that?
Pull on it some more. How do you wrestle through that?
How do I listen to something while blocking out my thoughts? Because sometimes I try to meditate with prayer at the same time, and it's very hard to do that because when I'm opening up my mind to one thing, suddenly it branches off into another. So I don't know how to control that.
Control your focusing.
Yes, how to control my focusing while I'm praying.
Is it because you don't know? Because when the new branch emerges, are you wondering, is this a good line of reasoning? Should I follow this?
Yes.
Right. Any thoughts on that, Eliana?
So you're saying, like, you think about, you're praying and then you're trying to block out thoughts, but you can't? Is that like...
I block out thoughts, and then I open up my mind to God, but then somehow that goes over to something else.
Okay, what I think is you might need to pray about that too. What I think is also that maybe that's just what happens to humans.
Do you have any thoughts on that, Daddy?
I do, but I wanted to let you guys wrestle those things out in real time. Okay, so again, these are wrestlings that probably aren't going to go away anytime soon.
Yeah.
Because a lot of adults, well, it depends on how well you train your brain and how adept and deft you get at diving into your unconscious mind and conquering the chaos. Some people are horrible at it, and so they spend their whole lives vacillating between their unconscious and conscious thoughts, and they can't figure out how to use their conscious thoughts to navigate and journey into the unconscious. Okay? And so you do that you're doing the right thing by meditating and by praying. You're doing the right thing. You're trying to create a space of calm, and you're trying to push everything out. So my goal to you is just to get to the point where you push everything out. Don't let anything in. Just push it all out. Push it all out. Now, that's going to take months and months of practice. Some people are like, ugh, months of practice. And so in the beginning, you might only be able to push one or two thoughts away, and then you're bombarded with the rest. But after a while, you'll be able to push all thoughts away, and you'll be able to rest in this moment where your only thought is you resting in that moment. You can't be devoid of thought. That's impossible. Like, your mind can't be devoid of thinking.
What does devoid mean?
Devoid means nothing is there. You have voided everything out.
Got it.
You have taken.
Thank you.
The mind is always racing for thoughts, and it's never going to fall asleep unless you're out to go sleep.
And we call that sleep.
Rest, I guess.
No, if you're brain dead, where you have no.
Oh, death. Sorry.
Death. Yes.
Yeah, because your brain is still active when you're sleeping because it's dreams, but you just forget them all the time.
Yes. So when we push those thoughts out, and then we get to the point of I'm thinking like, I'm going to focus on my breath. I'm going to do a Wim Hof. I'm just going to focus on my breath. And I'm going to focus on pushing thoughts out. That's going to be my thinking and my process, to where that's the only thing that I'm thinking about. Then once you get to the point where you've cleared this great palace, this great hall, then, and plus you can push these things back and close doors, and then you have this great, I always have this rotund room, this rotunda, and it's massive. I mean, it could be, I could be an acre big or more. And I kind of mark the doors, bad thought, good thought, question marks, and then I entertain thoughts one at a time at certain points. And so, but it takes a lot of discipline to be able to do that.
And how do you entertain thoughts?
Oh, you entertain a thought. So what do you guys think thinking is? What is thinking?
Thinking is,
I'm thinking the mind is processing a thought.
Okay. The mind is processing a thought. That's what thinking is. Okay, Eliana, what do you think thinking is?
I don't actually know how to describe it.
Give it a shot.
Leaning more into the thought, I guess, and giving it attention.
So giving a thought attention. Well, that would be the common conception of thinking. That a thought pops into your brain and you entertain it by following it like a rabbit down the hole, like Alice following the rabbit down the hole.
Yeah.
But that's actually not thinking. It's not thinking. Thinking is having that thought and the rabbit going, hey, follow me down the rabbit hole, and you're like, why should I?
So thinking about thinking.
Yeah, metacognition. In a sense, you have a thought, and then you immediately challenge that thought and say, should I be thinking this? Is this good? Are there any consequences of this? And pushing and prodding, it goes, it seems good, but can I find any flaws? Can I pull any threads of the sweater? Kick it around and say, is it solid? Does it hollow anywhere? That's what thinking is going, I'm going to try to prove this wrong. Because here's the reason why we should do that first, is because if a thought is bad and we entertain it for a long time, we might grow an affinity for it.
And there's signs that tell you when it's bad, when it goes against your conscience, right?
Very good. There are, as a detective, what we would say, Alex, there are
clues.
There are clues.
He's a little slow, guys.
He has a detective agency called Mullins. Is it Mullins Detective Agency?
Yes.
Yes. MDA.
He's learning.
But he's just now learning. He has his Hardy Boy handbook on becoming a detective, which is a wonderful book. But anyway, so we have clues that tell us whether something is worth our time to follow it out. Because if we follow out a bad thought because we like it, because listen, all of us like our own brand.
Yeah, that's bias.
We all have our bias and prejudices, and we all like our own stuff. We're bent toward a certain thing, so when something comes up, we go, ooh, I love that smell, that's mine, I got it. Okay, I love this, it's my favorite thing. And then we grow an affinity for it, and when someone challenges it, we get upset. You shouldn't challenge this. Why? Because I like it.
I was actually just thinking about this while you were talking, and I was thinking, because you and I disagree on really stupid stuff, but still, I think you should be able, people should, if you are correct, then you should be confident in letting people challenge you, because if it survives that, then you know that it is worth believing in. But if it doesn't, it's not worth believing in. And there's certain philosophies that can't go against itself, which is really weak philosophies.
All right, explain.
Explain what?
I mean, that was fantastically. That was put with precision. That was very good. So, what kind of philosophies? What do you mean that philosophy can't answer itself?
Well, which philosophy is it, Daddy? I forgot.
Now there are millions of philosophies that do that. What were you thinking of when you said that? Do you remember? Do you know?
Well, there's one specifically that I don't remember, but no, I remember. It's critical race theory.
Okay, critical race theory. All right.
So, when you argue critical race theory, you're saying that white people are better than black people, right?
That seems to be the prevailing shorthand answer.
Is it if I impose on that?
Yeah.
Go for it.
I don't think that's what they're saying. I think they're saying that white people have more privilege, but they're not better.
What does privilege mean?
This day and age, it can mean anything.
Well, their meaning of privilege, I'm assuming this. I don't know everything on this topic. But what I'm guessing it is privilege. What they're saying that privilege is
Can I help you out?
yes. Wait, no, I got it now. When we were in the slave times, they're saying white people got a head start.
Okay.
And all the white people now have got a head start on black people. Now, maybe somewhere along the line, a white person now had relatives that were black, but because they married a white person, their son became white. So is that white person still have privilege? That's a question that we should also be asking.
So are you saying that there's I think critical race theory means that there's either oppressed or oppressor, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if that's true, then why would God make us? Because if he knew we were going to be oppressed or the oppressor, we wouldn't have a reason for existence. So if we were made to be oppressed or oppressor, then why would we be existing? Because people are always saying, what is my purpose for existing? Well, we all have a purpose. We all have a purpose, and they're all different, but it's not just oppress or oppressor, because I'm not oppressing anybody, and just because I'm black doesn't... And here's the thing. If black people are the oppressed, then if white people change to be oppressed, then the black people are bad, because black people switch to be the oppressor.
In short, it's chaos.
Yes, and that is what happens. Like, there will never be peace in any place if we go by critical race theory, because you cannot just be oppressed or oppressor.
So you're saying there's another option, that you don't have to. You can find your identity and purpose in another faction other than the oppressed or the oppressor.
Yes, and that other faction is there's so many, but it's also live in harmony.
Okay. So what does harmony require?
It means you have to work together, and you have to be in peace together, and you can't just judge people by their skin color, and you can't say you're like a criminal because you're black or white, and you can't say you are oppressed or you're the oppressor because you're black or white. You can't say that. Don't judge a book by its cover. That's the thing.
Well, I think Mary Poppins teaches us that lesson, doesn't it?
Yes. I recommend that book.
Don't judge a book by its cover. Yeah, that used to be the prevailing theory when I grew up, was don't judge a book by its cover. So, what is one thing that doesn't seem, that critical race theory seems to lack? What's one thing that it really seems to lack?
Sense.
No. I mean, critical race theory does diagnose sort of a problem that certain communities in the United States seem to continue to fall into socioeconomic despair more than other demographics. Okay. And so it's diagnosing, it's observing a set of clues, and it's saying, well, here's a set of clues. Now we all have the same clues, okay? But it says, I'm going to start out with the premise that there are only two types of people: the oppressed and the oppressor. Now, what most of you don't know is that critical race theory and critical theory, and even going back to Marxism, it's an offshoot of Marxism. It goes back to a philosophy. There is a dichotomy that does branch out that we're seeing play out today. We have two schools of thought going on. We have will to power, which means might makes right. So might makes right means that I can, whatever I do to take the power away from you and bring it to myself is permissible, because the only reason you have power is because you took it from me.
And
now,
that's what I was thinking about today also. I was thinking, like in Harry Potter, I was thinking about Harry Potter, and I thought it's about the power of good and evil, and they go to school and learn magic, but like it could be either Harry Potter or Voldemort. You could use that power and go for bad, like Voldemort, and fear the name of Voldemort, or you could be like Harry Potter and be famous.
Well, he wasn't famous because he was.
I know.
Yeah, so you mean he chose a different path?
Yes.
Yes, and so by choosing a different path, he had a different
Ending.
He had a different ending, didn't he? So there is another option to this. The other option to this is you have will to power, which like Alex said back there, or I call him Lex. What Lex said back there was, it's chaos. And Eliana mentioned this too. If we are simply will to power, meaning that there are just hierarchies of power, and if you have power, you've taken it from me, and therefore I have to take the power back from you, that just breeds chaos and contempt and violence. That's all it does. Because there's no forgiveness. I can't forgive you for usurping power over me, and you can't forgive me for trying to usurp power back. There is no harmony, because every faction that's against itself sees the other faction as an existential threat to its existence. And
if this is critical race theory is being taught in schools, and if it keeps being taught, then all of the rest of the what is it called, like XY or generations. The rest of the generations in the world is going to be taught that black people are oppressed and white people are the oppressors, and it'll keep switching, and we'll never be in harmony.
It's collectivism. It's putting people with like colors into a group and saying this group is good or bad because this group is good or bad. And so it's called the composite and division fallacy. So let's go back for a second to the clues. Now, I'm not saying that the clues that they're using or the diagnosis that they have, that there are certain people who aren't doing as well, and historically haven't done as well. I think the observations are probably correct. It's like a doctor diagnosing an illness, like diagnosing the symptoms, but misdiagnosing the illness, right? So they put the clues together, but they put them together in the wrong space. What is a mystery? What does a stray do all this time, son?
He jumps to a conclusion within the mystery.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Basically, he chooses the wrong path during a mystery, and he jumps to conclusions very fast. While Sherlock Holmes looks for the correct clues.
Uh-huh.
And when you look for the correct clues, you come to the right conclusion.
So if you put the right clues in the right order, you come to the right conclusion. And for my money, critical race theory puts the clues in the wrong order and comes to the wrong conclusion, because it starts out with this theory that we are a part of a collective. And and the collective is good or bad, and therefore, if the collective is good or bad, each individual inside the collective is good or bad based on the definition given to the collective. And so, now, see, what my kids and I are talking about here is we're not talking about individual experiences inside of this argument. We're talking about the philosophy behind it, because the philosophy behind it pushes your behavior. If you have bad philosophy, like Alex said, you're going to have bad behavior. If you put the clues in the wrong order, you're going to come to the wrong conclusion. It doesn't matter how you feel that you're right or how these things should be. What it is you have put the clues in the wrong order, and you're going to come to the wrong conclusion.
Wrong factor, wrong answer.
Wrong factors, wrong answer, she said.
If you have a math problem even, and you have the wrong numbers, you'll get the answer wrong. So,
absolutely correct. So I am very encouraged listening to my kids dissect this and talk this out. And for those of you that don't know, I have not, quote unquote, done a reverse indoctrination of my children with critical race theory. I simply give them information, and I've taught them the tools of reason, and then I turn them loose. I show them. I show them.
We disagree in some things too.
We disagree a lot, actually. But by them being able to disagree, it allows them to come to better conclusions on their own, because somebody pushes back, and then they have to reconcile. This person doesn't agree with me. What do we do? How do we reconcile these disagreements? Because one of us is right, one of us is wrong, or we're both wrong.
And before I even became a Christian, most kids are Christian because their parents are Christian. And before I became a Christian, I was like all different kinds of religions.
We never forced Christianity on our children. They came to those conclusions on their own. We wanted to give them the tools to be able to do that, to make those decisions. All right, well, this is all we have today for this episode. I'm dropping the kids off with their aunt, and I'm going to head to work. Thank you guys so much for listening. This has been Unabashedly Resolute with special guest Eliana Mullins and Alex Mullins, the amazing 11-year-old philosophers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys have a great day. Later.